what about some weapons? Let's move on now to who Cam Newton, maybe Stidham if he beats him up, but let's, for the sake of this, let's assume it's Cam Newton because I think most of us think it will be. As you mentioned, more of a downfield passer, hasn't played in a ton of just dink-dunk offenses. So Julian Edelman, that's kind of his bread and butter, the slot. Been the passing game engine with his boy Tommy Brady there. Welker was there before him. So that's kind of how the whole offense has been. Do you think they still molded around Edelman, regardless of Cam Newton in the slot? Do you think the offense kind of gets flipped a little bit? Is this a positive or a negative for Edelman getting an established guy like Cam, but then also knowing Cam's style of play?
I think it's almost a negative for Edelman, just because that's, like you said, Edelman's bread and butter is those short, quick passes over the middle, and that's not really what Cam likes to do. And you really can't ask Edelman to change his game. He's not going to be a guy that's going to run down the field and make plays for you. That's just not who he is. So I think you're going to have to almost ask Cam to evolve to Edelman, and I don't know how that's going to go. Obviously Edelman will have his fair share of catches, and Newton's going to throw him the ball, but I would probably say that Edelman's numbers could probably be better if Stidham was his quarterback as opposed to Newton.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that, just because Stidham was in the system for a year and got kind of used to that. You look at Cam's career passing, 27% target rate for the slot versus 43% for his out-wide wide receivers. So he's definitely leaned on those much more than the Patriots are much more targeted towards the slot, and that goes from 87 TDs to his out-wide guys to only 44 in the slot. And there's also a bunch of stats, too, about how his pro football focus grade, he's 45th out of 50 QBs with the slot grade. A lot of things just suggest he doesn't love the slot, so I'm a little nervous of it. Already they're kind of hyping each other up, so maybe they work out some of those kinks. He did have some success with DJ Moore when he came over, so I'm not jumping ship with Edelman, but I did feel better about him, like you said, with Stidham at QB than I do with Newton there. But a guy I like more right now, because of some of those out-wide stats I was just citing, is NKeal Harry. We've seen Cam have that history of big body wide receivers. You think of Kelvin Benjamin, those contested catches, saw 145 targets, 1,008 yards, and 7 TDs as a rookie. Kelvin Benjamin did with Cam, just kind of hucking it and letting him do his thing. Again, I don't know how much is Belichick going to allow that. Do you think he'll just kind of let Cam play that style of game? And if so, do you think Harry can kind of rebound from a very disappointing fantasy season last year?
I do. I kind of liked Harry even before the Newton signing. I think Harry was sort of put behind the 8 ball last year in terms of the situation he was put in with missing, half the season with his injury, not really having much time with Brady. And then once Harry came back, they were halfway through the year, and Brady was, miles and miles, and the offense was miles and miles ahead of where Harry was. So he was doing a lot of catch up. And now, with assuming Newton's his quarterback, like you said, Newton's not afraid to throw the ball up in the air and let his receivers make plays. And that's what Harry seemed to do best at Arizona State. And, as much as the Patriots and McDaniels want, good decisions, you can't really change who a quarterback is. And if he's going to take more chances than Tom Brady did, you can't change that. And that's the case with Newton. So I would expect, more, contested catches, more throws down the field, more chances to give the receivers a chance to make plays. And like you said, that probably benefits Harry more than any receiver the Patriots have, just because of his athletic ability and his body and lineup on the outside. So having Newton as his quarterback is definitely probably a benefit for Harry over Stidham.
Is there any chance, we'll get to the only other wide receiver is Sanu, but is there any chance anyone other than Edelman does lead this team in receiving? Do you think it's a possibility at all, or is it still kind of Edelman even with the kind of mismatch of QB play here?
Probably has to be Edelman just because of the volume that he's going to get. He's going to definitely get the most targets, and so just because of that, it has to be Edelman. But I think that the gap would be, and I don't even know who else it would be, James White. I don't know how Newton really impacts him at all from a fantasy perspective, but I just can't see Harry leading the team in receiving, so you have to go with Edelman.
And the last guy would be Mohamed Sanu. I know you wrote some positive reports on him and his trainer. What's kind of the latest on him, and is there any chance he rebounds and has any type of fantasy impact, or is it just not going to be a big enough aerial pie here to sustain Edelman, Harry, Sanu? Where do you see him kind of sliding into all this?
He's a wild card because, he could essentially, if he has a great, training camp in summer with Newton and whoever's the quarterback, he could be a great guy to have as a guy that, defenses pay attention to Edelman. there's Sanu with single coverage, and if he's healthy like he was a couple of years ago, he could make an impact. But then on the flip side, if he has a bad training camp, he could very well be cut. So he's a wild card, and if you want to think positive, I think he could be a solid wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. But it's just a consistency thing with him, and you don't know what you're going to get. Like, he had that great game last year against the Ravens, his first game with the team, and then it was basically nothing after that. I know injuries were a part of it, but he's a wild card, and so I don't really know how much you can count on him from a fantasy perspective. But if you hear reports over the summer that he's looking good, he's connecting well with Newton, he looks healthy, he could be a guy to take a chance on, but I don't think he's a guy you're going to count on in fantasy.
I know, that Ravens, it was kind of like, what the hell happened? He had, I think, 14 targets or something insane, 10 catches, was going absolutely berserk. So I was hoping that was a sign of things to come, but as you mentioned, do you think it was pure injury, or was it just kind of, what happened there?
I think injuries were a major part in it, and then, he's coming. It's tough because he was battling an injury, but he also probably was behind the 8 ball, catching up to the offense and trying to connect with Brady. So it was just a lot of things that were going against him, and I think he was probably thinking too much. Like, I remember he dropped some easy passes over the middle that we're used to see him catching. So I think it was a combination of things, but the injuries were probably at the top of the list. So if he is healthy, that could lead to a lot of better things for him, but I just don't know how much of an impact he can really make, just given his age and given just who he is as a player.
If you're willing to entertain it, what would you kind of project then the receptions, yards, and touchdowns for Edelman, Harry, and Sanu on the season? If you're just like, screw that, I can't throw it up, but what do you think it might end up being if you're willing to entertain it?
For each guy?
Yeah.
I would say, Edelman was just over 1,000 yards last year?
I believe so, yeah.
What was he, 100 catches? I think he was exactly at 100 catches.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's probably not going to be at that level. So let's just say 85 receptions, 900 yards, and 4 touchdowns for Edelman. That sounds about right. And then, Harry's probably the next guy, and, he could have a great season. Like, he could really have a big bounce back here. So he didn't have many catches at all last year, and he's not really a possession guy. So I don't know. He's probably in the 40 to 50 reception range for maybe 600-700 yards and 5 or 6 touchdowns. How does that sound?
Not bad.
And then Sanu, I don't really have high hopes for Sanu. Like, he's probably in the 250, 300 yard range with a touchdown or two. Like, I don't think he'll make much of an impact. I think, honestly, Sanu and JaMarr Myers are probably in the same range.
That was one guy I wanted to bring up, too, is Myers. When we left last time, I was ready to cut up a clip like Myers, sleeper, have him ready, because he has that Stidham connection after last preseason, and we know Edelman's injury history. But does this signing, assuming Cam's the starter, kind of ruin that, or do you think he could still emerge with any type of role here?
No, I still think he could still emerge. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to benefit from not having Brady around, just because I think him and Harry were thinking way too much last year, and allowing Harry and Myers the freedom to just play and not think could definitely be a benefit. I just don't think that Myers is a guy that's going to make a huge fantasy impact, but who knows? He has the athletic ability. He's only played receiver for a couple of years. He was a college quarterback, so maybe just a couple more years playing receiver could be a benefit to him. And he's just a guy to probably keep an eye on, because he could be a sleeper that just emerges as the number 3 guy. And if these defenses are all over Edelman and Harry, who knows? Maybe Myers, has some big time plays and contributes.
Do you think there's any room for a tight end here to make an impact? Last year was obviously abysmal, and we had this kind of reputation. I think it's largely inflated and clear at this point that, when you have a talent like Gronk and Hernandez, everyone was like, oh, the Patriots are these tight end factories. They love using them, but clearly it was just a matter of using your talent the right way, because last year there wasn't even a tight end. Who the fuck was it? Like Lacoste?
Ben Watson, Matt Lacoste.
Disgusting.
Ryan Izzo, it was awful.
The worst tight end production in the league. But clearly they made it a focal point too, so maybe it is something they wish they had last year, going back-to-back third-round picks in Devin Ozzie and Dalton Keene. Do you expect an impact out of either of these guys, or any of them you'd look at long-term as more of the guy you'd rather have than the other for fantasy purposes?
Oh, Ozzie, 1,000%. Dalton Keats is basically a hybrid fullback, tight end. Like, he's not really much of a receiving threat. He lines up all over the field, including the backfield. I think at Virginia Tech, he didn't have a single game with more than 80 yards receiving. So he's not much of a receiving threat. He's more of a jack of all trades guy, going to do all the dirty work. So good guy to have on your team, but not for your fantasy team.
Gotcha.
Ozzie is definitely an intriguing guy just because of his lack of experience. He only has really one full college season. He transferred from Michigan over to UCLA, and he's a guy that he has some athletic ability. He could connect with whoever's at quarterback and make some plays in the receiving game. So if you're going to pick one of the two, it's definitely Ozzie. I'm not going to say he's going to have a huge fantasy impact, but who knows? Maybe they find some routes that he can run well in certain packages, because that's probably what he's going to be, a guy that's used in certain packages. And so he's the guy that you could certainly take a flyer on just because of McDaniels' use of the tight ends. And I'm sure, Cam Newton at quarterback would love to have a solid tight end, and Ossie's probably the number one guy on your roster right now, even though he's a rookie. So if you like the Patriots and tight ends, I would go with Ozzie.
Yeah, Olsen definitely had some solid years with Newton at the helm, so working the seams, maybe Ozzie with that athleticism could be an intriguing sleeper. So we'll just see. Obviously, a crucial thing to track throughout the summer is who is Cam, budding rapport with? Is he working with all the guys? Do him and Edelman seem to be on the same page? Can he kind of mesh his style of those contrasting, seemingly clashing styles of play? Can they all blend together? Will be a very intriguing storyline. In addition to Belichick and Newton, just such polarizing. The Patriots became such a boring. Like, I was excited to just talk with you because I always love talking ball with you, but I was like, all right, yeah, Patriots preview Stidham, yay. No one really cares in fantasy.
Right.
They've become a pretty exciting team in the offseason in a matter of just a couple days.
No, totally. This was going to be not a dead training camp, but there wasn't really much excitement. And if anything, this just sort of gives it life. Like, fans of the Patriots didn't really have much to get excited about. Yeah, it's Stidham, a young new guy, but it's Jared Stidham, and this is Cam Newton, a big polarizing figure. So definitely training camp, and just talking about the Patriots has a lot more energy and enthusiasm now that Newton's in the mix, regardless if it works out, because it's another storyline to pay attention to.
What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.